Alright, hi everyone. This is perhaps the most important video in this series of clips I've done regarding the 4x6 horizontal bandsaw. There's a whole lot of videos on my channel. There's a playlist of about a dozen videos where I have a review, a short review. Then I discuss the mods and fixes I've made in that same video. And then I have about another 11 or so videos, including this one, where I go over mods and fixes that I've made. I will discuss the blade briefly, but there is another video about breaking in the blade that everyone should see. I will also be discussing setting up the upper wheel. Then I'll get into the blade guide bearing holders here, these things. We'll also talk about the vise, and then finally about aligning the vise to the blade. The short version of this entire process is actually very, very simple. There's only two angles that matter. One is the 90-degree angle to the table, like that, and the other is the 90-degree angle to the fence on the vise. Rather inconveniently, the cut angle coming from the top down like this has no adjustment at all. That angle is set by this axle. There's nothing you can do about that. So if you buy one of these, I guess just determine whether your cut down is straight. The second one, of course, is the angle of the blade to the vise. And that, of course, is absolutely dead simple. You just adjust that, and you're done. So that's the short version of this whole video. That's all you have to do, and you can walk away and carry on with your day. But now I'll get into the long version. So to begin setting up the whole saw properly, we're going to start by opening this. We'll take off the blade, we'll remove these guides here, the whole casting. Now, there's a reason I'm taking these off that I'll explain in a moment. There we go, the top wheel drops down and everything comes out. Now, as I said, there's another video where I talk about the blade, and especially about breaking in the blade, and you should watch that. But here I just wanted to mention something else. Number one, you should buy a bimetal blade and enjoy that. My one, when it arrived, the teeth were back to front. There's a little sticker on the back here that tells you which direction the teeth go in, and obviously they go downwards. But mine were upside down. I was looking at it going, what's going on here? Did I get the left-hand model or something? Or, you know, I mean, I've never bought one of these before. I just bought it by the length. I think it was 1640, and the width, which was like 12.5 millimeters. That's all I went by. I didn't go by anything else. And so I thought maybe it's for something else. And I was going to take it back the next day, and then overnight I thought about it. And I was like, oh, obviously you can probably grab it and do that. And there you go. Put the teeth on the other side. So I will show you what's on the other side first. Now over here we've got some complicated things. Obviously we've got the wheel on top. We've got these two plates on the side. And then this sort of a sled that sits in between these two plates. That one there, that just holds a block that this knob on top is screwed into. On mine that was quite loose. When you've got it all undone like this, tighten that up. And then you don't touch that one again. But you've got this one here, the 14 millimeter, which is loose. And also in here, you've got a grub screw, which is also loose. What I want to point out here is that the middle one adjusts the wheel going in and out that way. The bottom one adjusts the tilt of the wheel. But you'll find that both of them actually affect the tilt of the wheel. And to explain this, I'm going to put the blade back on. There we go. And then tension it again. Exactly like so. How tight should you make this? Well, let's call it wrist tight rather than arm tight. And it's, you know, tight. Okay. So I was asking, where do you adjust that central screw at the back? It moves the whole wheel in and out. Where do you put it? Well, obviously, you want that wheel to be directly in line with the wheel at the bottom. While I was fiddling with this, I determined that the best way to do that is to use this back edge. And you can see it all the way up here, and you can tell if it's parallel or not. And the idea is to make it parallel, with the blade running on the wheel all the way. As you move this central one in and out, you may need to tweak the grub screw, which is the tilt, to make the blade get back on the wheel. You may have noticed that there's this flange here at the back of both wheels to stop the blade being pushed off. Of course, the cutting pressure, you know, is in that direction. And so once you've got this wheel in a line with the bottom wheel, then you can fine-tune the grub screw so that the blade just comes to rest against the back. And at that point, you've done it. That's your adjustment. Because we're going to want to see this, I'm going to lock that on. Now, don't do this at home, I suppose is what I'd have to say, but how else are you going to do it? I think I just did it with some tweezers like this. Now it's off, of course, and I'm pushing that bit down the back of the switch, and this bit here is just going to push the front of the switch down. So I'm doing that, and I'm doing this in my own home, not telling anyone else to do this, all right? But that's how I'm doing it. As you see, it's actually pretty slow. I've got it on the middle speed, and it's not very fast. It's pretty close, but what I'm seeing on my screen is that the blade here is too close to this edge. It's closer than that one is to that edge. But I'm going to go back and forth here and show you. So I've moved it out, and it should be quite obvious that we can see the casting here, the red casting, and up here we can't. So we're going to screw this thing in. And you do need to make sure that the blade is actually riding on the wheel for this, riding all the way back against the flange, and if it's not, you could adjust the grub screw to make the blade push itself back to the flange on the back of the wheel. And mine isn't right now, so I'm just going to, for the demonstration's sake, do that. Whoop, whoop, other way. Okay. I've just turned the grub screw so that the wheel tilted back a little bit, and now the blade is riding, just touching the back flange on that wheel. It's doing that both top and bottom. So now I can get back to adjusting this one in and out to where this is even. Come on, what are you doing? Nope, wrong way. In. There we go. That's nice. So that's that. Now the next part is the tilt. You can't see it very well in there, but I'm going to tilt it outwards so that the blade starts to slide off, and then we'll go backwards until it just touches that flange at the back. So first I undo it. There we go, now it's tilting forwards. See how it's coming off? The blade's coming off. And then I'll go the other way. Slowly, give it time. So I bring it back, now the blade travels back. I'm taking it past to see if it starts scraping or anything, and it's not. So what I'm going to do with these is this. These two bearings obviously stop the blade going left and right. They also twist the blade. They're designed to hold either side of the blade and then twist it like that. Now when it twists them, the blade is under pressure, and it can at that point be difficult to judge how much pressure is being applied to the blade either side. A lot of people seem to be using those to set up the blade in the slot, but that's not the adjustment they have. What we're actually going to do is we're going to set these up so that the tension is correct on the blade and that the blade is in the middle of the bearing behind. And the reason for all this, I should tell you right now, little freakoid here should tell you.
The reason for this is because I have another adjustment. The other adjustment I have is right here, the back of my neck.
That's the adjustment for the alignment of the blade. This whole part moves on top of this casting here, all over the place. Where do you want to set that? I would suggest undo it, line up the sides, line up the front, line up that side, just get it all square and parallel, and just do it up like that. That's your starting position. So the way I'm going to set these bearings up is as follows. I'm just going to place it on here, and first thing I'm going to check is where is the blade relative to the back bearing? Is it in the middle of that bearing or is it offset to one side? I can see it's offset to that side. If I get down low, maybe you can see there. So if I... There. So now the blade is going down the center of the bearing at the back. How tight should these pinch the blade? You know, you want to be able to push it on like that, so it just holds nicely, comes off quite well. There you go. Okay, the next job, now that these are adjusted, the bearings are adjusted, is to just put them back here in the housing. So we'll open this thing. We're going to need a knob in the back. Okay, I'll be adjusting those, so I'm not going to put them all the way back just yet. Now, I saw someone say that it's not right to have this coming out like that and then going up. Can't see it there, but there we can. They're suggesting that that's pulling the blade off its track or something, or off and going to make it break earlier or something. That's not true at all. If everything was perfect, the middle of the blade there wouldn't change position when these are installed. The front of the blade would go further out and the back of the blade would go this way, right? Because you've twisted it. There's nothing you can do about that, and don't worry about that. The blade's, you know, it can handle that without any problem at all. And if it goes off like that, well, to a degree it's meant to go off like that. That's all on purpose. Now, at this point, we've not done any adjustments here for this blade, for this chassis and the cuts. We could do all of that simply by coming over here and adjusting this thing. But we're going to be better than that. So wouldn't it be nice if this fence here was perpendicular to all the casting channels here, like there, there, there. It doesn't mean anything, but it's just nice. It's a good starting point. Get our square out, put it on the edge, and you just check it. Go like that, and look. I also did another mod to help me always get back to that exact setting. That's in a video as well, but it's really easy. Just screw a little stop there. Now we're at the point where we want to square this up against the blade. In the manual it says you should set these up so that they are just either side of your workpiece so that the blade doesn't wander, right? But the trouble is you can't actually put them any closer than the casting there and there. That's your minimum right there. And that's quite large. I don't know what that is, 4 inches or something. And so I'm putting mine right there. I'm just setting it up so it clears the casting, right? And then I tighten it right there. And this one here, same thing. I'm going in and out. I'm going to take it where it clears the casting, including the little protector box, which would be there. That's where they'll stay. So I do that before I do any adjustments here. Now, the last thing we're adjusting is just that screw and the same one over here. Now, undoing those, lets us move these all over the place. See how much slop is in there? Because there's that much slop, you can see that these bearings should not be used to adjust the back and forth of the blade. They should be used to adjust the blade to be in the middle of the bearing at the back. So I'm going to take this one and undo it a little bit and bring it this way. And this one here, do it. I'm going to get my little tappy hammer. Okay, that's nice. I can see down there now quite clearly. Well, it looks great down there now. That's a terrible pixelated image, but that's what I'm seeing pretty much. You could go really mad and start pushing feeler gauge down there. I actually did this when I first set it up. Now, the last question is, what about getting the blade, you know, square to that, vertically? Even though I said that doesn't adjust the cut. But you do want the blade to go down the middle of the slot that you're cutting, so the lube can move, so it doesn't pick up metal and stuff like that. Now, it looks pretty damn good. The question is, can we check that in any way? Well, over here on this end. That's all surprisingly good. That is surprisingly good. So one of the other adjustments on this saw is the stop that stops it here, like that. Anyone who has one will have seen this here. Simple adjustment, just hits the case and stops it in a certain position. And obviously one would set it up so that it cuts past the table, and if you're fussy, you'd make it dead horizontal. And so I see mine is sticking up a little bit, about a millimeter from end to end, but I'll set that up. Now, not so obvious is that if you just simply take this down, I'll move that out of the way first, like that, and I look at it again and I see, oh, it hasn't changed enough. So I do it again. Go down, make another little tweak, come down. No, it still hasn't changed enough. And then I lift it up and I go, what's happening? Oh, it's not even touching. I've actually screwed it down past that. There's now a gap. Well, that's because it's sitting over here on the switch. Before setting that up, undo this. Okay, so there it comes to stop on that screw, and it's pretty much dead horizontal like that. So this is a 19 mil nut, that one, and then we'll go back over here and do this, because obviously the plan here is to not make it so that it mashes that all the way down to the end of its travel, but just presses it most of the way down. Provides quite a bit of bounce, that does actually, quite a bit. And with the spring tension set high, so that this is pretty light, that actually holds it up quite well. Something I do here, which is sort of overkill, but because that sits there like that all the time, mashing this plastic protector, I'll just keep an old socket that I don't use in there. like that. Alright, so one of the last things here to adjust is of course the belt. Now, as you may have seen in one of my other videos, I replaced the belt with a modern automotive belt with these teeth in it. That's a really good mod, stops all the wobbling, and as part of that also straighten out the motor in its mount so that these pulleys are in line with each other, and then set the tension. Tension which you set using this screw down here. How tight should you make it? Well, there is a calculation you can make. I think it's a 64th of an inch per inch of distance here. But at what pressure? About that, a few pounds. That would only work out to be a couple of millimeters here, which is really nothing and would actually be too tight because it's not necessary in this arrangement for this to be very tight. You want it as loose as possible so that you don't cause unnecessary wear on the bearings, but at the same time it needs to be tight enough so that it doesn't slip or squeal while you're working. Just come in, feel it, there you go, done. Alright, now I just finished that video all about adjusting the blade and all that stuff, and then forgot to do a cut. So let's do a cut. How about I use... This is actually a good test. And this is nice because it doesn't take long. And I can do it in both directions. So, let's see. That's where I've done previous cuts. So the point of this is I can make a vertical cut quickly and we'll test the vertical cutting accuracy. Now, as I pointed out, this can't be adjusted. So, there's nothing you can do about this. One thing, however, you can influence this, and I've found this out as well. Just like when you're cutting with a hacksaw, the harder you push, the more the blade tends to go off somewhere. And so doing a light cut keeps it straight. And I'll do this dry. I mentioned before, it's one of my favorite tools for using because you can get rid of these little stuff like that so quickly. Okay. Oh, it's absolutely spot on like that. Yeah, see that? I don't know if you can see that, but it's spot on like that. But as I pointed out, that can't be changed. You can influence that by pushing hard or doing something silly, but that can't really be changed. And so the other angle is what matters. The one we've just adjusted is the other side of this piece. So if we cut it like this, but let's have a look in any case. Yeah. Well, it's perfect. Once again, so I get it on there. I'm not seeing any burrs. Yeah, I mean, there we go. So that's about everything then. Alright, so make sure you check out the other videos. There's about a dozen on the channel to do with the saw, just detailing all the other little fixes. There's a bunch of other content to do with my Ducati. And obviously later on I've got more coming up for the lathe and the mill and so on. So if you want to join me on my journey through this little adventure, stick around. Okay, bye-bye.